First hour today, we're going to talk about building a gold standard organization. So to give you a little bit of background from my side of who I am, I spent 8 years with Hockey Canada, basically developing coaching programs, working with the volunteers from the branches, working with experts in the field to develop curriculum for coach education and development. So that was my first 8 years. And then over the last 8 years, I've transitioned into the events and property side of our organization. So we host 8 events annually that we host every single year. And then we get from the IIHF the ability to host other events from year to year as well. So World Junior Championships, Women's Worlds, Under 18s. When we host those in Canada, they fall under my department at Hockey Canada, which is events and properties. So that's a little bit about me and what I'm all about. We're also going to try to draw a little bit out of you today. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions as we go along. We're going to start with a little bit of trivia, okay? And the trivia is actually going to last the whole hour. So we're going to go from time to time where I'm just going to ask the question again. But I'll start with the question right now. And I do have a rule. See, when I used to do these trivia questions, it was really easy. Because you could tell if people were looking up the answer because they'd have that big half-pound cell phone on their ear. And they'd be calling a friend or whatever else. But now with all the technology, I know I'm going to ask a question, and you're going to look it up right away, and you're going to give me the answer. So I'm going to ask you for the next hour not to cheat. Okay? You can look at your phone. I don't care if you're checking the golf scores, but please don't check the answers. So here's the question. 7 countries. 7 countries have had a 50-goal scorer in the NHL. Today we're going to find out who the first player from each of those countries was to score 50 goals. Did everyone understand the question? 7 countries had a 50-goal scorer in the NHL. We're looking for the first player from that country to score 50 goals. So if I say Canada, where was that? Maurice Richard. I heard it over here somewhere. There you go. Maurice Richard. See, that's simple. So I'm going to say a country. You're going to say the answer. But we're not going to do the rest right now. We'll go to the other ones. We good with that? We got Canada, Maurice Richard, gentleman at the front. Okay, why are we here? As an organization of Hockey Canada, you're going to hear a lot of time that we talk about, the dollars and cents or the best of the kids, or what are we all about? But you heard last night from Craig and Ken very clearly that we're not here just about the dollars and cents. We're not here about the end result. We're here about the process. We're here about the process in place to make us successful. And we're going to talk today a little bit about what we do at the national level from an event side to make Hockey Canada successful. And then we're going to take that down to say, what does it mean for a minor hockey association? And how do we make sure we have a gold standard in order to make ourselves successful at the minor hockey level? So I'm going to tell you the story of what we do, and then we're going to apply it to what the Minor Hockey Association does. For those of you that don't know in the room, really our role is to service the branches. Hockey Canada's role is to make sure we service Hockey Manitoba, and that's a big part of our mandate. So we really only do 3 things. And when you talk later about what is a great minor hockey association, I want you to spend some time thinking, what are we really here for? Why do we exist? What is our purpose? Hockey Canada only does 3 things. And if we divert from those things, we're not doing the right things as an organization. So the first thing we do is we put together national teams. As an organization, we run under 17 program, under 18 program, under 20 program, our national team programs, and obviously the Olympics. Our job at that point is to win gold. Period. Period. We have a shrine at Hockey Canada called the Hall of Champions downstairs. You walk in and it's plates and trophies and banners and insignias and all of those types of things. Not a single silver medal is in there. Not a single bronze medal. No participation ribbons. It's about gold. And when it comes to national programs in our organization, that's what we're about. I had a lady a couple of years ago that did a project with her students with the under 18 team that won silver during the spring event. She came to Hockey Canada. She said, we did this great project. I'd love for my kids to take some pictures of like the silver medals and the champion or the trophy and the pictures from the team. I said, we don't celebrate silver. So at the highest level, that's our standard. And yeah, it's about results. So I said it's not about results. It's about results at that level. So we put together national teams. The second thing we do is about programming. And that's really about this group in the room. Coach education, officials education, safety, harassment and abuse, programs to put the kids in the game, recruitment, retention. That is programming. Our job is to design programs that Hockey Manitoba and you can deliver. So if you meet with me after this hour is over and you say, you know what, Dean, the coach program doesn't work right now for us, and here's the issue, I'm listening, because we're developing them for you. We're developing them for the end user. And the final thing we do is run events. So we run events at the national level, like I talked about, and we run them at the international level. And they're really for two purposes. One is so that kids can compete for a national championship. For any of you that are sons or daughters, or some of you in the room may have played in a TELUS Cup or an RBC Cup or a ESSO Cup, that might be the pinnacle of a career for a youngster in Canada. A national championship, an opportunity to win a club team championship in this country. The other end of the spectrum, we talked last night about World Juniors. World Juniors really funds what we do as an organization. We host World Juniors every 2 years, and we generate about $15 million that goes back into minor hockey in Canada. And while we love winning gold medals, and we love watching for those 10 days between Boxing Day and January the 5th, the end goal is about the legacy created out of those events. So really what makes it successful, and I like to think it's two things, and I think you're the same at a minor hockey association level. We do certain things on ice. We put great teams on the ice. You're going to do the same in your association. You're going to make sure you have jerseys. You're going to make sure the team's outfitted. You're going to make sure the coaches are trained. You're going to make sure you book the ice. All of those things, there's an on-ice action that's happening. But you people are the off-ice action. I'm the off-ice action for Hockey Canada. So when I combine what we're able to do on ice with that support off ice, really that's what makes us Hockey Canada. Not us as an organization, you in this room, Hockey Canada. And it all comes down excellence, credibility, and success. If you travel internationally, you will find quickly the IHF coaching, the IHF officiating medals, all come from Hockey Canada. We have a reputation to uphold, and it's because of what we do in this room, it's because of what we do on ice in international championships that makes us successful. Squeaky stage. What makes an event successful? What makes what you do successful? There's all sorts of things that go in there, and there's different things that you may look at to say, this makes us more successful. And it might not be the same as an association down the street. Morden might say, we need this in order to be successful in our community. And Winkler might say, you know what, that's not what's required in our community. We're different than that. Winnipeg versus Winkler, two totally different communities, might need two totally different things in order to make them successful. So I'm not going to walk in here and say, this is what's going to make you successful. Because it's going to vary from community to community, and you're going to need to identify that for yourself. First Swede to score 50 goals in the NHL. Yeah, just so you guys know, Alberta got this like in 2 seconds. Who said what? Who was that? Who got hack and lube? Who said that? All right. Bob at the back, I can't walk that far. I'll give it to guards. Here we go. Yeah, there you go. You got a pin. There you go. Hakan Lube, the first Swede to score 50 goals in the NHL. I always get Kent Nielsen. People always say, oh, it's Kent Nielsen, the Magic Man. It wasn't Kent Nielsen, it was Hakan Lube. So today we're going to talk about simplification. We're going to talk about, I want you to walk away from these sessions today and say, I learned a lot of great things, but here's the one or two things that we're going to take back to our association to make ourselves great. Make ourselves great. So I just want to show a little video. Hopefully all this works. We might need to do a little sound check, but we'll figure it out as we go.
Plenty of thoughts go through a player's mind during the final round that can impact whether they're hitting on all cylinders. Let's head to the practice tee archives now. Here's a tip on what goes through the mind of a pro and how to look like you're in the zone, even when you might not be.
I've been asked many times, JC, what are your swing thoughts as you're swinging? What are the secrets? What are the secrets of golf that pros know? Well, I heard this one time, and I remembered it, and it's really, if you'd write this down, it really helped. What I try to do, I try to flat load my feet so I can snap load my power package. That way I can amplify both lag and drag pressure through impact fix. As long as my number 2 power accumulator doesn't break down, I can reach maximum centripetal force with minimum pivotal resistance. You see, the pivot is the utilization of multiple centers to produce a circular motion for generating centrifugal force on an adjusted plane, plus the maintenance and balance necessary to promote the 2-line delivery path. See, golf is geometrically oriented linear force. It involves a physical and muscular thrust and the geometry of the circle. You can divide the golf swing into 24 basic components, each having between 12 and 15 variations. Now, when you think of all this and you get it all set, hopefully you'll hit shots like this.
So, keep it simple. So at the end of the day, like I said, I want you to walk away with 3 or 4 things that you can take away and say, this is what's going to make us successful as an organization. So here's what we did in our organization. We sat down as an organization and we've got priorities as an organization in Hockey Canada. One is to win gold medals. One is to bring new kids into the game and develop programs for kids. And the third one is about financial long-term stability. Those are our 3 goals as an organization. We then took that and we said, as an events department, we host events in Canada. What are our priorities as an organization? And we really came up with 4 things that we call our strategic pillars. And these are going to be different. This is what I'm talking about, events. So if you're looking to host events in your community through Hockey Manitoba, whether that's Adam, Pee Wee, Bantam, Midget, Provincial Championships, you may want to have a sense of what I'm going to talk about right now. So we looked at 4 things. We focus on experience, execution, brand, and legacy. Those are the only 4 things we spend any time on when it comes to hosting events in our country, whatever community that's in. We want to deliver extraordinary experiences to our event stakeholders. We want to challenge ourselves on how we deliver that execution of the event. We want to create a brand that extends Hockey Canada into the community. And finally, we want a legacy. And that can be financial, and that can also be about the development of kids and programming. So let's define what a few of those things are. And again, I'm talking about events here, but start to think about what this could mean for a minor hockey association. Number 1, at Hockey Canada, the athlete experience is job 1, period. And I defy anyone in this room to walk away today and say, you know what, our priority, we're not athlete-centered. Our minor hockey association does not exist for the player. It exists for something else. I'm hoping to run for the mayor, maybe if I'm the president of the Minor Hockey Association first, it'll give me a good in for that. We are athlete-focused. Number 1, and what does that experience look like? When I create an athlete experience, what does it look like? So we talked last night, you heard the word fun. You heard the word skills. You heard the word opportunity. So we need to define what that athlete experience is. Volunteers. And again, we talk about events at this level, but volunteers are really still the lifeblood of what we do in Canada. There's a changing demographic across the country, and this is starting to modify itself. But at the end of the day, volunteers need to be a priority. So while you're spending time with the athletes as athlete-centric, what are you doing to develop your volunteers? How many people in this room, I think the registrars are next door, but how many people in this room are in an executive role with your minor hockey association? Just quick show of hands, don't be shy. So pretty much everyone in this room, let's go with 65%, 70%, are in an executive role in the Minor Hockey Association. How many of you were mentored? You came into the president's role, or you came into the secretary role, or you came into the financial role. How many of you were told, 1 year, this is what you're going to need to do to be successful next year? How many were mentored before they went into that role? How many got the laptop dropped on their desk and say, hey, here was the ice bookings from last year, good luck? Right? A lot more, right? Hey, so we need to find out ways to develop you. That's something I watch that show of hands and I say, Hockey Canada's got to do something about that. How do we help Hockey Manitoba develop volunteers that are delivering programs? Because at the end of the day, if we're going to try to recruit new kids to the game, and all you're worried about is whether the laptop powers up properly to check registration, we're not focusing on the right things. So first we need to develop volunteers. It's for events, it's for your associations. And for the end of the day, for us, for events, we need to have fans. It's about an experience. So minor hockey, hey, it's grandma and grandpa coming to the game. But if you're hosting a community event, if any of you in this room as an association are hosting the Bantam Provincial Championships, how do you create an experience for those athletes? How do you create something where you say, you know, I've never played in front of a crowd like that. I've never had a skate mat laid out in my dressing room before I came in. I've never had a name bar in my stall. I've never had a meal served to me that wasn't in a Subway wrapper. What are the things you can do as an association to create an athlete experience when they compete at a provincial or regional event that's different than anything else they do? First Finn to score 50 goals? Wayne Gretzky, first Finn. That's a good one. Who's got Yari Curry? There we go. Beautiful. Hockey Canada 100th anniversary pins. It was actually last year, but I got a few extra in my desk. Execution. So don't be afraid to challenge what you're doing. Don't be afraid to challenge what you're doing. We were talking about a great leadership video last night, and there was a movie back in the 80s, I can't remember the name of it, but about the guy that basically saw this crazy dance on the Discovery Channel, or whatever the case may be. He thought it was sort of the latest fad for Much Music. He had the wrong channel on. Now he starts dancing. People are like, what is he doing? But all of a sudden they think, well, if he's doing it, I probably should do it as well. I should try that. And now all of a sudden, this guy that's doing this crazy dance off the Discovery Channel now has the latest fad. So don't be afraid to challenge what you're doing from an execution of your minor hockey association. We started a couple of years ago in the program. I work in the community in Calgary, beyond my Hockey Canada role. I have 3 daughters that play. And normally, how do you normally start your season? Depends on where you're at. You do the registration. And then the kids show up on day 1, and they go to a desk. And they get a penny number between 1 and 20 of a different color. Then we throw them on the ice. We give them about a 45-second warm-up, and then we ask them to skate. And then a bunch of us stand up in the crowd, and we mark them. That's their first experience to the game. Welcome to hockey. We're going to test you. We're going to place you. And if you fall, you're going to see all sorts of guys write down. Does that happen in your minor hockey association? First experience to the game? So we changed ours a couple of years ago with novice hockey. We started what we called the Novice Development League. I really don't know what that is. But the idea was we're going to put kids on ice 3 times before they go through any evaluation process. It's for trying on new equipment. It's for testing out skates. It's for getting back to school and worrying about the really important things in life. And no one else was doing it, saying, hey, you got to get teams made. You got to get evaluations done. And we're saying, no. We need to challenge the experience that the athletes are having. We need to give them something different as their first introduction to our community. So that's a really simple example of how do we execute differently as a minor hockey association or as a national organization. Find new ways to be great. Find new ways to be great. Talk a little bit about brand, and this is something Hockey Canada spends a lot of time on and who we are. And Craig alluded to this last night. Normally when you see the logo, what do you think? You think of national teams, championships. We want to be known just as much of that for what do we do in communities for developing programs. I want you to be able to deliver programs that people recognize your community brand. When they see the Dauphin Minor Hockey logo, they say, you know what? That stands for quality in our province. We know that Dauphin has great programs. We know that they've increased registration more than any other community in our province. We know that they've educated officials, coaches more than anyone else here. We know that they've built new infrastructure to support. I want your minor hockey associations to be able to come here next year or 5 years down the road and say to Peter, we're a gold standard organization. Here's what we deliver. And I want you to challenge yourselves to what those things are, to create your brand. Final thing I'm going to talk about is legacy. And I think we talk about an international level of hosting events, and we talk about a few things. Long-term financial success is one thing that we obviously look at. And I talked about World Juniors. There's dollars out of that go back into grassroots programming. The reason we host the World Juniors every 2 years is not because I like to miss Christmas every second year. That's not the reason we host it. We host the World Juniors every 2 years to put money back in hockey. The same reason you should be hosting events in your community should partially be about how are we going to put a financial legacy to keep going what we've been doing. How are we going to continue to drive that forward? But also the legacy of development, of more youngsters involved in the game. I talk at future event hosting opportunities as an event, but to continue to host things in your community as well. So if you do something really, really well, Hockey Manitoba is going to come back. Hockey Canada is going to come back. Anyone have an opportunity to go to the RBC Cup in Portage last year? Anyone from Portage? Okay. Obviously, we didn't do a very good job at selling tickets. That's not true. We filled the building. Maybe we sold too many. You guys couldn't come. But the example, there's a legacy that's left in that community, and I'm not going to get into dollars and cents, but there's a community like Portage that hosted a national championship, national junior A championship, filled the building every day, had an opportunity to tell the Portage story, had economic impact in the community of people staying there in the community, had an opportunity to recruit new kids to programming because they saw the very best players in the community. That's legacy. That's legacy. And you have to do unique things to create your legacy. First check to score 50 goals in the NHL. Wrong. First check, anyone? It's a good one, but no. Canadian. Stastny's a good guess. He actually came from the former Czechoslovakia, but he was a Slovak. And never got 50 either. But that's beside the point. Still active in the NHL. Jaromir Jagr. Here we go. Yep. Jaromir Jagr. We won't go into what he's posting on YouTube right now or Yahoo or anything else. We'll just give the pin out and move on. Jaromir Jagr. So we talk about process. Enjoying the process. Enjoying what we're doing. So this is one of the challenges of this. We're going to talk today about building a gold standard organization. Being awesome in what we do. I want to make sure everyone in this room and every kid that puts the skates on for the first time in September, they're excited about it. They're excited about the process and being involved in the game and being engaged in hockey. So, focusing on process. So we're going to talk a bit about that today as well. What are the steps you need to take in order to be successful? We talk about this in our office all the time. There are times when we have finished second, third, or fourth, and we feel we've done a better job than ever before preparing our team. The process is there. The results aren't there. That doesn't make us happy. But the reality is there's times you feel you've got all the process in place and the result isn't there. But it is all about the process. So I'm going to go back through a couple of slides that Peter showed last night because I want to reinforce how important this really is. So this first one is like, why do we need to check ourselves? So how many of you in this room for your minor hockey registration do the following? You go to the local sign company and there's those signs on wheels with the fluorescent letters on them. And you go and you get the fluorescent letters and you wheel it out to the two entries of town. You got a street at one end, a street at the other end, and enter your community. And it says, registration Thursday at the Legion, bring check. Maybe it's not exactly that. You probably forgot the Q and check or whatever, a couple of words missing, but whatever. How many of that? That's your recruitment process right now. No, okay, that's good. Good. That's my community's recruitment process. I'm actually in a community of about 18,000 in the city of Calgary, and we have about 10 of those signs, but that's our recruitment process. And then we follow that up with an email to our current participants that says, if you do not register by August the 1st, there'll be an additional $200 charge for late registration. Well, wow, I really want to get involved now. So excited. This is great. We've got a different dynamic in this country. And some of you I grew up in a small town of 3,000 people in Ontario. I always say that because people, as soon as I say Ontario, think Toronto. But I grew up in a small town of 3,000 people. I'm going to be honest with you. We weren't overly ethnic diverse in the 70s. That is changing. You heard Ken Campbell talk last night in Scarborough. I can guarantee you if you saw that class picture, you would say, wow, what an ethnically diverse country we have right now. We are changing. I haven't coached a single team in the 10 years I've coached that haven't had more than 2 parents per kid. Almost every team will have kids that have 2, 1, 4 parents involved. That's changing. We are more diverse, more ethnically diverse. Great experience a couple of years ago. My daughter starts novice hockey. I'm in the dressing room, and there's this guy, he's about 6'5", and he keeps staring at me. I'm not going to lie to you, I was a little uncomfortable. So I got to know him a little bit over the season, and then we had a conversation near the end, and he said, remember at the start of the season where, I was kind of weird in the dressing room, and I was staring at you, and he says, I'm originally from Australia. I had no idea how to put the equipment on. And you look kind of like you know what you're doing, So I figured I'd watch you and hopefully figure it out. Retrospectively, if I'd known that, I would have shit with him and probably put things on wrong. But the point was, there was a guy that had signed his kid up for minor hockey. He wanted to be engaged. He wanted to be Canadian. And you know what? He didn't know how to put the equipment on. For all of us in the room, that seems foreign. I had a young Indian child on my team a couple years ago from East India. So I talked to his dad and I said, what made you get involved in hockey? What was your choice of being involved in hockey? And he said to me, Dean, I moved to Canada and there was two things I wanted. One, my son to play hockey. Two, to own a snowmobile. That's what they thought about Canada. That was his goal. The good news is he owns a snowmobile. His kid wasn't much of a hockey player, I'm not going to lie to you. But the country is changing. We're changing who we're recruiting. You can't rely on mom or dad anymore. You can't rely on the fact that moms and dads played the game to get involved. We have never in Canada have a 5-year-old bring a checkbook to register themselves for hockey. Never. So when you talk about who we market the game to, you better be prepared not just to market to mums and dads that have played the game, but to new Canadians that have had no exposure to the game previously. Peter showed this chart last night. I want to go back to the chart. And the reality is you cannot read that. But the point is this. The point is this. Peter's chart was way better than mine. The point is this. Roughly 10% of Canadians between the ages of 5 and 18 are registered to play the game in this country. Any school teachers in the room? School teachers in the room. Okay, don't be shy. Perfect. 2, 3. You walk into a classroom right now of 25 kids, you'll have less than 3 of them that play hockey. That blows me away. That absolutely shocked me when we did our numbers. Imagine what we could do if we could grow that to 5. What that would look like. So we've started to do things. We've started to develop educational programs that teachers can deliver in classrooms. You go right to Hockey Canada, download. It's a lesson plan that's got to do with the number of seats in a section in math. It's got to do with language arts, telling stories about the game of hockey. Those are the things that we're going to need to rely on if we want more kids playing the game, if we want more people involved in hockey. Because I think we'd agree that's a shockingly low number. But we're dealing with a different dynamic in this country than we ever have before. So one of the biggest challenges you're going to have is you're going to come away from this day and from last night, and you're going to have all these great ideas. And you're going to start to develop, hey, here's what we would like to focus on. Here's the things that we think are important to our minor hockey association. And you're going to go back and the president's going to say, yeah, we're not doing that. So for those of you that are executives, I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things out of here. I'm going to ask you when you look, as you start to develop a plan for your association, to do 2 things. I want you to focus on the here and now. What can we do today to make ourselves great for 15-16? And then I also want you to think about, how do I make sure that continues to keep steam when I move on and there's a new president in place? How do we ensure that any plans that we put in place continue into the future? And that's going to be the key. Because I'm sure a number of you have come in, if your association president, and said, you know what, I'm going to be different than Bill. I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to put my stamp on this organization. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you've got to continue that continuity of the things that are happening that are great. And you need the executive to do that. Go one more trivia and then we'll jump into first Slovak to score 50 goals in the NHL. Who's got Peter Bondra? Bernie Reichert, not eligible. Bondra. Great answer. Great answer. Unbelievable. You guys are good. Just going to make sure I'm on time here. I don't want to take up too much of John's time. But I also want to make sure the Canadian presentation is longer than the American guy's presentation. I'm not going to lie to you. Sort of sidebar. So what's going to happen today is that we're going to talk a little bit philosophically in my section, and then John's going to say, here's what we really did. Here's how we applied it. So you're going to say, Dean's presentation gave me a lot to think about, but what do I really do with that? And John's going to tell you, okay, here's what you do. Here's what you do. And we're sort of like, in bringing John in, it's a little bit like that case where, you know what, you sit in an association meeting, you say, I've heard Bernie say this every time, enough of Bernie. But then you bring Bernie, the exact same guy as Bernie from 100 miles down the road, and he comes in and speaks, and you say, whoa, Bernie, that guy's a smart guy, he knows what he's talking about. That's just the reality. Okay, so here's one of the things I want you to do in order to take care of your own home. Take care of your minor hockey association. First thing, you need to evaluate your current situation. You need to know what you've got and what you don't. How much time do you spend before the start of the season in the association saying, here's what we have. Here's an inventory of programming we have. Here's an inventory of what we've got on teams. Here's what we did well last year. Here's what we didn't do so well last year. You take an inventory of what you've done. So number one, I want you to take an inventory. Then I want you to think about, how do we address those needs? How do we address those needs? How do we actually say, now we've got this issue. We've identified through that inventory. How do we tackle that? And you'll see it in the book that you're handed out when you registered. You'll see it in presentations today. There's resources out there in most cases. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's resources out there in most cases. And then the final one, how do you design and implement those programs then? So now I've got this. I've got a gap. I've done my inventory. I've got a gap. I've now taken a look at that and I've identified a program. Now I need to deliver it in the association. It really is as simple as that. So here's your task for the next 5 minutes. You have notepads on your table as well as pens from Canad Inn, proud partner of Manitoba. I'm going to ask you two things. I'd like you to identify at your table what you feel is the one biggest gap in your minor hockey associations right now. So I understand you're in a situation where you may have someone from a very urban center, very rural center at your table. But I want you to identify the number one gap in your association right now that keeps you from being successful. So you're going to spend 3 or 4 minutes on that, and then I'm going to say stop, and then you're going to take 3 or 4 minutes on how do we deal with that issue. Is everyone clear on the task? Number one challenge for our organization right now. 1 for the table. Second, how are we going to deal with that issue? Everyone clear? 3 minutes for the first task, go. Okay, we're going to bring it back now as a group. I was warned earlier, if people start talking about the Bombers, we really know they're not focused anymore, to bring it back. So I've heard Bombers mentioned a couple of times. It's time to bring it back to the center here. Quickly, inventory. I don't expect every table to report. We'd be here all day. Just quickly, someone, what do you have? What's your biggest issue? One table. What's that? Fear of change, closed-minded. Anyone else have that? I think that's personality, generally speaking, that's people. Fear of change. So, solution? Education? Terrific. Locally with your minor hockey association?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a push more from Hockey Manitoba, Hockey Canada, to get that message out to everybody. More resources for parents and board members. We can go back and tell them, but they're the same faces they see every day. So if they get the message from somebody else, just like you said, Bernie can sit up here and say something, but someone else comes and says the same thing, and he's right, right? So the message comes all the way from Hockey Manitoba to those parents, to those board members.
So really that comes down to, if someone didn't hear that, it's about fear of change, and then the solution is education, and then really what I'm hearing is you need a united front, starting from Hockey Canada, Hockey Manitoba, down to the association, that really has a singular focus in what they're doing and communicate that effectively. Is that a fair summation? Perfect. Anyone else? Any other issues? Numbers. Explain that one to me. So the challenge over here, changing population, getting kids into the game, pure numbers. Small towns getting smaller, less kids in that age group, getting them playing. What was your solution? Haven't found the solution. So we're going to talk a little bit today about solutions. How many of you have local relationships with your skating club? How many of you have local relationships with softball or baseball? Yeah. How many of you have good local relationships with the following groups? That's a good point. I appreciate that. There's an example. We've talked about this internally. How cool would it be as an organization in Hockey Canada if we could work with branches and then with the associations to get registration in one spot. Baseball, soccer, hockey, you register in one spot in your community for the 3 sports. Mass registration. I pay $900, $300 for each sport, or because I'm playing all 3, I get them for $750. So now I've already saved dollars. Registration centralized. We do it all in one spot. We don't fight over athletes. Simple solution. Simple to implement. Okay, it's the challenges, obviously. But a great concept and great identification of an issue. One more. I'm looking for one more issue. Travel. Can you explain that one for me? Well, I understand what traveling is, but the challenge.
Just the cost for parents to travel from game to game. Like, we can have a novice team traveling 3 hours for a game.
Okay, so the issue, if you can't hear it over here, is travel. We could have a novice team in our community traveling 3 hours for a game. Solution? Decrease gas prices. Okay, Hockey Canada, proud partner of ESSO, but I'm not sure I have that much influence. But what other solutions are out there? How many people in your community, sir?
So we have 18 associations that travel from the U.S. border all the way up north.
Okay. Play less games, a solution? Do more locally? What's that? Group them into smaller divisions? So lots of solutions out there. So there's an example of travel, which we came up with an issue, and right away we were able to find solutions. Now, we didn't find the best solution, but this is one of your roles as the Minor Hockey Association, as a president, as a registrar, or whatever, is to go back and find the solution. Identify the problems, find the solution. First Russian to score 50 goals in the NHL. Who said McGillney back there? No, you've already won. Bure's wrong. He said McGillney, and I told him he was right. You're right, McGillney. Perfect. They actually got 50 in the same season. McGillney just beat him to the number. So here's what I'd like you to do when you go back to your community. And I'm going to give you some steps, and then I'm going to show you a model that we created for our skills academies. So you heard mentioned last night, actually, that whole discussion around academies. And what I'm talking about is not, the academy where you go away and you're bored and you pay $40,000. What I'm talking about is the skills academies. I know there's a number here in Manitoba where kids during the day actually take hockey as part of their school curriculum. Typically, it's not a huge investment of dollars, but it's about how do we put more kids in the game? How do we make better use of ice? How do we influence on the educational side hockey? So I'm going to show you the model once we kind of take these steps. But I want you to evaluate your association needs and identify what those are. I want that to be a priority for you when you go back to your community. I want you to do board evaluation and membership survey. The question came up last night. And it was a fairly long-winded one, and if you're in the room, I apologize. But we eventually got to what the question was, which is when we have someone that's a real idiot, how do we convince them what we're doing is right? I got news for you. You're not going to convince them of what you're doing is right. But if you do have surveys with your membership, and you as a president can stand up and say, hey, 95% of our membership want less travel, that one guy that wants to play 90 games and travel all over the province because he's got an Esso gas card or whatever the case may be, it's very easy for you to stand up. Here's the facts. We represent the 250 players in our association. This is the desires of our organization based on the survey. So you need to ask your membership. You need to ask them what they're looking for. And you'll be amazed at the results that you get. And there's some great examples of surveys out there that are created to either, take people in the direction you want them to go if you want to manipulate it. But there's great surveys out there that you can apply and say, hey, this is what we're asking. Here's how we're going to do it scientifically. So ask the people. And there's great tools out there for free. Go take a look at Zoomerang or SurveyMonkey or anything like that. For basically little or no cost, you can survey your membership. You need to have input from the directors as well. So not just your parents, but you need to have input from the directors. Because you as a group need to be able to say, okay, yeah, we understand this. We know what the priority is. We've seen what people have said. You then need to say, what do we do about this? How do we attack this problem? And then ultimately, you need to make some recommendations as an organization of how you're going to be better. You need to be able to propose to your community. We've heard you. We've taken that information back. We've synthesized it, and we're going to present it back to you. And if you want ownership from your community, it's the only way that you're going to be able to do it. And it allows you to stand up for that person that doesn't believe in what you're doing and say, hey, listen, We went through the process. We did the survey, we did the town hall, we came up with solutions, we brought people together. Here's our plan. Is that a question or just stretching? That's a great question. And so the question, for those that didn't hear it on this side of the room, is I've talked Hockey Canada to the branch, we've talked branch to the Minor Hockey Association, et cetera. What does Hockey Canada do for the player or the parent or the family, right? You're talking from here to here. The way our organization runs right now and is organized is our relationship is with our 13-member branches. So Hockey Manitoba being one of those. Hockey Manitoba owns the relationship with the participant. So the player, the coach, the official. So we work with Hockey Manitoba on what are those things that we need to ask. So anything that you would receive from Hockey Manitoba when it comes to surveys or questionnaires or invites to sessions like this really all comes directly or indirectly from Hockey Canada. So there are things that as an organization that we would say, here's what we really need to ask the membership. Hockey Manitoba, we need your help. And then Hockey Manitoba has the autonomy to say, geographically, here's the things we also need to ask them. So that's where those relationships exist between Hockey Canada, the branch, the Minor Hockey Association, and the end user. And that's a commitment we've made to our branches. Hockey Manitoba is an example, that we don't speak directly to the end user. We want that relationship and brand to be created from Minor Hockey Association to the branch and then to Hockey Canada. It's a super question because it's the government question, right? In Canada, how do you make the best services based on the government structure that you have? It's a great question. I don't think I had a good answer for it, but I at least explained the system to you. So a couple of things that you're going to get. So if you can develop a great association, you're going to hear Steve Norris this afternoon, and he is awesome. You're going to hear John today, and he is awesome. And as you start to do these things in your association that take these little steps toward greatness, you're going to find out that more people want to help you. I've seen Steve Norris, who's a world-renowned exercise physiologist, say, I'm going to go to this small town because they're doing things with long-term player development that no one else is, and I want to support them. So as you start to do things, these little changes, people are going to say, hey, that's good stuff. We're interested in that. We want to support and help. You won't get a lot of support, quite frankly, when people say, you know what, that's not what I believe in. That's not what we believe in as a national body or as an expert in the sport on the childhood development or whatever the case may be. So you're going to need to figure out what are the things we're going to do, and you're going to get more resources if you do that. So here's a model at the end of the day that we built for our academies on how we were going to measure the success of academies. So this is, you look at this and it's not real simple when you first look at it, but we identified 3 things when we talk about school academies on how we were going to measure their success. And then we actually went out and did it. So 10 times a year to 10 different schools, we went out and took this model and said, we're going to come out and we're going to do an inventory of your academy. No different than maybe down the road, we're going to get to a point where a Bernie or a Peter or someone from Hockey Manitoba comes out and says, we're going to come out and we're going to do an inventory of your Minor Hockey Association. The 3 areas we really identified are program management, program design, and program delivery. How does in this case the school, but you could apply this to a Minor Hockey Association, how are they in delivering their programs? How are they in the design of overall program and what they do? And ultimately, how are they in the management of those programs? And we've identified a number of different things, I call this the honeycomb, around the central part of the honeycomb. But that's really what it's about. And I'm going to challenge this group, and I'm going to challenge Hockey Manitoba, that next year at this meeting, one of the sessions we should do is, what have the associations done to create their honeycomb? What are the things they've identified, the 2 or 3 things as priority that they'd like to be measured on? What are the things within those 2 or 3 priorities that they think are really important for them to be successful? And there's all sorts of examples there. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but when we go into a community in this particular case or into an academy, we basically say, we want to see everything you do on program delivery. What's your classroom management look like? What do your training sessions look like? Who are your instructional staff? And we've got basically a rubric that we talk to them about. Here's the things we're going to be looking for. Here's the measure of success. And we essentially give them a report card and say, here's what we've seen. Here's what we like. Here's what we didn't like. Here's what we're going to take to other academies that we think is great. Here's 3 or 4 things that we think you can do to improve. It's not about picking on the academy. It's about finding a way to make them better. So, again, I've talked fairly philosophical here today, and again, John's going to give you a lot of practical approaches. But at the end of the day, there's a couple things. One, it's about leadership. It is about leadership, leadership, leadership. And you are respected in your community. As a minor hockey association or a registrar that's stepped up and taken a leadership role in your community, you are respected in your community as a leader. And I want to just show a quick video here on leadership that I can't do justice. So,
some people are eagles and some people are ducks. Do you know the difference? Eagles, they kind of hunt live prey, don't they? They soar high. They keep their families protected, out of harm's way. Strong and independent, find my own food, take care of myself, attack my enemy, kill the things I need to eat, protect my family, rest, go out, hunt some more. I think I got a room full of eagles. Guess what some people are? Ducks. Got a few working for you? You've seen them in the office. What? You know who they are? You got names already, don't you? You know who these little waddlers are? How you doing today? I'm fine. Room's too hot. Food wasn't there. Not enough coffee. He said I'd get the next laptop. How come I didn't get the new cruiser? God, what a mallard. Your job as a leader is to get this duck doing what? Soaring like an eagle. Don't commit them to duckdom. You give them things to do that'll separate them from the masses. See, one thing about a duck, I call them ducks because they're like losers. It comes from an old thing that came out by Wayne Dyer years ago. They're losers. And losers got to be around what? Other losers. So if you get up with your attitude of neutral, guess what's going to happen? Some loser's going to attach himself to you. And next thing you know, you just quit soaring. If you come in like an eagle, they can't get you on the pond, you see. But if you walk in saying, how you doing? Fine. And you have no attitude, someone's going to say, boy, this job really sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. I'll follow you. Job sucks. At least you have an attitude. You get up with an attitude of gratitude. You get up with a positive attitude. You start soaring like an eagle. And their ducks are going to look different to you, aren't they? You find them in little patches. You'll never see one duck flying in a V. And you'll never find one loser alone. They have to have other what? Losers. Look for these little packets and break them up, so to speak. Walk into a store to exchange a shirt. You want a duck? What's the girl behind the counter going to ask you for? A receipt. Sounds like you shop at the same store, huh? We create ducks, don't we? 18-year-old, maybe your daughter, your son, you stand here at the exchange booth. When they come in, they want to exchange something. Here's what you say. Have a receipt? And if they say no, then you say, can't do it. No receipt. Then they argue with you, turn and point to the sign that says what? No receipt, no exchanges. That'll fix them. What did we just build? A duck. Don't be creative here. Don't see what we can do for customers. Don't act like you work at Nordstrom. Ever been to Nordstrom? I don't like this suit. Well, why don't you pick out a car? I will shop there. I don't want to fight you, Macy's, or wherever else you go. I ain't fighting you.
leadership's a funny thing, right? So we're really trying to develop in this room. You're trying to develop and be an eagle. And then you're trying to take that and go to your association. How do you create other eagles? Because we know the truth. I understand the truth. Hockey Manitoba understands the truth. The challenge is the ducks. How do you break up the little packets? Get it. Final question. First, I'm going to do this for John. Shockingly, an American has scored 50 in the NHL. Anyone. First American to score 50 goals. Joey Mullen is wrong. Who's got Bobby Carpenter? Bernie, shut up. Anyone else know first American to score 50 goals? Bobby Carpenter, good. Peter. Bobby Carpenter, the first American to score 50 goals. That's rarely gotten. We didn't have this. Fantastic. Last thing I'm going to show you is about changing the message, and I talked early on about messaging. You know, we put up the sign in the community, register, bring your check, late registrations, charge an extra fee, etc., etc. How do we change the message? How do we make people want to join hockey? And I talked about a couple creative things before. Maybe you can register them together for multiple sports. Maybe we just need to break down the barriers with figure skating and speed skating and ringette and say we're going to teach kids to skate. And we'll take our chances what sport they end up playing. Because if the doors were closed right now, I'd tell you, I will take my chances every day of the year against those 3 sports in registration. But if a kid can't skate, they can't play hockey. So how do we create programming and messaging that says we're going to put kids into skating? And maybe ultimately they'll become hockey players. Swimming does it. Put your kid in swimming or they're going to drown. I'm going to put my kid in swimming. That's the message, right? It's a life safety skill. Maybe that's our message in Canada when it comes to skating. This is a life safety. This is a life expectation. This is going to allow you to do things in our country. I mean, we need to partner with other sports in order to deliver that. But those are the creative things we need to think about. Those are the creative things that we need to see from you as a community that says, we've done this and it's been successful. If you want to email Peter or call me or whoever else, say, we've got this great idea and this is what we do, we will listen. I promise you every time. We will listen. Because good ideas are in little pockets all around this country. Towns of 500 people, 1,000 people that are doing great things that aren't being shared. So the question here earlier, from the top to Hockey Manitoba to down, we need to go in the other way too. We did this and was really successful. Because Tom gave the goal of 1 million people, and quite frankly, when I first heard that, I assumed I was going to be out of a job in 2020. That's a huge goal. Anyone remember what Kennedy challenged the Americans back in the 60s? We're going to put a man on the moon. And bring him back. And I wasn't there at the time, so it's before my time. We're going to put a man on the moon and bring him back. They put a man on the moon and they brought him back. But I'll guarantee you when he said that at the time, people were like, yeah, good one. Funny, John. Love it. Can we elect someone else? We got a nut bar right now. Right? That was probably the reaction from a lot of people. So it's a huge goal, but all of us need to be a part of that. So last little clip I want to show here is on messaging. Hopefully I still have an internet connection. Hopefully the right video comes up. YouTube, great tool, by the way. This is probably presented by Porter, by the way.
What did you do to my sign?
I wrote the same, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
Really the exact same thing being said in a totally different message. Totally different message. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not nearly creative enough to tell you what that message needs to be. But we need to find the message that bring kids to the game and keeps kids in the game. And you're going to hear it over and over again today. The things that are going to allow you to make that happen. You're going to hear it from John. You're going to hear it from Steve later on. You're going to hear it from Bob. You're going to hear, here's the things we need to do to develop better associations. Here's tools that are out there to do it. Here's different ways to organize yourself in order to be successful. So really this morning, all I've tried to do is give you a bit of a philosophy and give you some things to think about But please today, take those things that are tangible tools that other people are doing and take them and start to apply them. Because there's tremendous ideas out there and there's tremendous strength in this room. I like to finish with things that really speak to my level. This is from Dr. Seuss. You can really steer yourself in any direction you choose. Right? As an organization in Hockey Canada and how we work with Hockey Manitoba and how Hockey Manitoba works with you and how you work, you really can decide and set the course for your organization. So I'm challenging you today to set your course as an organization in the direction that you want to go. Go back to your organization. I want you to do a couple of things. I want you to figure out where the challenges are, and I want you to identify strategically what are the things you're going to do to be successful. And the third thing is we're going to do it. We're going to take one or two things that we think really change what we do, and we're going to do it. And as a result, we're going to take a small little step toward being successful. I think I'm pretty close to on time, Peter. Thank you very much for having me. I don't get enough opportunities to be out at the branch level and community level. I really enjoy being here with Hockey Manitoba and appreciate the time that you've given. I know how much time you spend doing evaluations this time of year and registration of players and organizing ice time and all those types of things, and you've given up a day and a half of your time to be here. Thank you very much, and all of you deserve a big round of applause for being here, so thank you very much.